will be explained on the recording. Okay, so I'm about to hand you practice 10.2, and then we're going to wrap up 10.2. Okay, so this is for tomorrow. I'm handing it to you now. Y'all will be meeting in the conference room. I am going to take a set of calculators down there and have them plugged in.
You want to give me 2 in case Addie shows up tomorrow?
I was wondering about that. Yes. Thank you very much. Good. All right, so we'll have one for Addie. Anyway. So, due date on that I have put as Tuesday, April 22nd. We are also about to completely wrap up the notes for 10.2, and we are certainly not starting the 10.3 notes before we come back from the break. All right, so that's my phone vibrating over there. Okay. Let's wander back about 45 pages till we have the beginning of 10.2 with our little concerned guy who didn't know what was fair, but now he seems to have a much better understanding of fairness, right? Okay, and we see that there's a CMHW, and you're only doing, how many problems are you doing if it's 2 through 10 even? 5 problems, okay? But, as we've seen in the notes, when you're doing the 5 problems, you may be taking the same election and working it 2 different ways, right? So, there's some scratch work involved in that one. So, I'm going to let me see what I decided to make the due date for that one. So, here's the deal, Lucille. Have you ever come back from a spring break and you can't remember anything? Okay, so you go into class and the teacher starts teaching, especially math, and you're like, I don't remember any of this. The day we come back, I'm not starting and moving the notes. What I'm going to do is on that Monday when we return, I am going to give you a vocabulary matching page, which is going to be a study guide. I started trying to put together one for Unit 10, and the words from the terms from just 10.1 and 10.2 filled the whole page. And I decided, okay, let's just stop and do that over 10.1, 10.2, and then I can decide if I do a different one over 10.3, 10.4. So I'll hand you that page when you come back from the break, and that's one of the things you'll work on that Monday. And then you'll also be able to work in the book in class on this assignment. So this is why you do not have to bring your textbooks tomorrow. You've got a worksheet to work on tomorrow. If you feel a desire to bring your big old heavy textbook, well, fine. But if you just get that worksheet done, I'll be very happy. All right? I'm trying to think. Let me take a look at it. Did I leave you enough? You may find, I think I left enough scratch work as I was putting it together, but you may find that you just can't write that small and you need to work some problems on clean paper, in which case you would say, work is on extra paper and it better be nice and neat and numbered, and I can find that, okay? All right? So, anyway, moving right along. That's what's going on tomorrow. Let's make this CMHW, it's going to be due on Wednesday for 23. Because I really don't know how long it's going to take you. I will give you the whole period in class on Monday. And then if it takes more time, you got a couple of nights to work on it. Okay? So, sound good? All right, so now we've established what's coming up the next bit of time. Go back to 37 pages later. The very last page. If you were watching this video and you're in the third period, you need to go back to the last video because we didn't get quite this far yesterday. All right, so we made it through our method 4, and we determined 2 different winners going 2 different directions. So we flunked the irrelevant alternative criterion, or I was about to say test, but the criterion kind of is the test. So people dropped out of the election, and it changed our winner. That shouldn't happen. So wasn't a fair deal. Okay, method 5. The dictator criterion. You know, what do you think this might be? What's it make you think of? Huh? One person is the dictator. So one person says, you're going to be this, and I'm electing you to do this, and I'm voluntolding you to do this, and that's not really a fair election in any book, is it? So this condition is more about the blank than the method of blank the votes. It's a method of counting. So this one is not very mathy because there's no votes to count, are they? So this method is more concerned about the voter than the method of counting the votes. All the other ones have concerns about the methods of counting the votes. All right, here's what it states. No blank voter is allowed to decide the blank of the election. Single and outcome. Good job. No single voter is allowed to decide the outcome. Now, we may think in terms of an entire government system where there is one dictator and there are no elections. That's not a fair voting. There is no voting. But it could also be something like, if there's not a majority, then, you know, like one person gets to choose who won or something, you know, which means all the votes just got thrown out and nobody's opinion counted anymore. Okay? So, simply put, in order to be fair, because that's what this is all about, an electoral system must be a blank and not a blank. What's this criterion called?
Dictatorship.
So it should not be a dictatorship.
Democracy.
It should be a democracy. Which I've got all my letters all splish splash backwards here and there randomly. Now that makes sense.
My hand's like cramping. I want to play golf yesterday. Or I went to the driving range.
Griffin!
My hand's like cramped.
Okay, finally, the following table summarizes each of the voting methods discussed in 10.1 versus, y'all are the one who found my verses for me, right? Okay. Versus the fairness criteria used in blank elections. Oh, no, because not all elections, because some elections may not exist because they're dictatorships. So in democratic elections. So we can't do an example 5 to try out the dictator method because there's no voting. Right?
Well, it is possible to have like an actual voting system where just one person changing their vote will change the outcome, but I can't think of a good example of that.
Yeah, so you know, it's kind of like in the end, this person chooses everything.
Yeah.
So I think there's a little bit of a difference in that.
Yeah, how does one become a dictator?
Are you looking for a new career,
I was about to say.
career change?
Yeah.
I'm going back, I'm redoing my I'm an expert career project. My goal is to be dictator. What's college? I want to major in dictatorship here.
Well, most of the
Because
time
like, if you want to vote, like,
they
hey, look
decide
at the dictator.
to overthrow.
Yeah, how did you get there if there's no
Yeah.
vote? Yeah, generally some overthrowing of something,
Definitely
some
lots of
some rising through the ranks with some
things.
having some charismatic
Murder.
yeah, and they're being very very vicious or being very charismatic to get people,
Oh, yeah.
like Hitler.
Like Hitler,
Yeah.
you saw one?
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, how does one get to be a dictator?
Oh, no, I don't want to know.
Okay, glad that's not your
You said it.
aspirations. Okay, just in case there's one happening that you want to keep an eye out for, right? Yeah. All right. So, anyhow, some of these inherently could violate, and other ones they really don't even play into it. So we're going to make a little table of what happens here. Okay. So, majority rule. Let's kind of come up with a quick reminder. We learned a bunch of different things in this unit. So I didn't type a little chart to remind me of each one. So let's go back and kind of remind ourselves of each one. So go back to the, how do we pronounce it? Condorcet, pages ago. Okay. His name for our French guy that had a lot more name than just Nicolas de Condorcet. All right, but it's what's it working with?
Pairwise comparison and majority.
Okay, so head to head. So it's saying if a candidate wins the head to head, then the candidate would also win the overall election, but not necessarily majority. It's just kind of saying you've run your election how you wanted to run your election, okay? But would your candidate have also won in a head-to-head to compare? We did just one example where we compared it to the plurality, and we found we could violate it, didn't we? Okay? The only one that this wouldn't violate, well, no, I take that back. Okay? Condorcet would not violate the majority. It says it never violates. Okay, so let's think about that. Why? Why would it never violate it?
Because if you have the majority, you automatically win.
You would head to head against everybody because okay. So does that make sense? When you go head to head, you have over half the vote. So that means you compare to your candidate A, you compare to candidate B, you have more than him. You compare to candidate C, you have more than him. You compare to candidate D, you have more than him. You have more than anybody because they all add up together to less than you have. So head to head, you're always going to be the winner. So we don't have a concern with Condorcet in a majority rule election. All right? Now, what about plurality? Tell me about plurality.
Whoever has the most votes wins.
Okay.
You don't have to have a
This is most votes win. No majority needed. Well, if you go head to head and you don't have the majority, then in a head to head you may violate that, right? I'm trying to wrap my mind around a situation where that would actually be the case. I mean,
Pretty sure the example for this one did.
Yeah.
okay, we did we do it? We did it with a plurality, didn't we? Okay, so we did it with a plurality, so we can totally see that. Nobody won a majority, and we had to start eliminating people, right? Okay, gotcha. No, we did head-to-heads. We didn't have to eliminate.
Yeah, we didn't. do
Yeah,
that.
when it head-to-headed, then it didn't come out the same. Okay, so we can violate this one. All right, now we're not going to say it always violates it. We're just, actually, we're going to get this little red dot out of the way. We could say that it may violate. Okay? Board account. What's the board account one?
It's where you give the scores for certain places.
Yeah, like if you have 5 candidates, then first place votes are worth 5, and second place votes are worth 4, and 3, 2, 1 going down, and then you add up all the points. You may violate that.
I've had to use board account with like track meets and
Um,
stuff. I mean,
that's
they're-
what I
they're
think
just voting,
Kalel
but-
said that, you know, I think it's just for
Yeah.
when you start getting to, I think there's a similarity between it,
Yeah, it's
you know,
not like-
but you're
like
kind of
the-
getting points for your
placement,
team.
yeah.
So who's the winning team?
Right.
They're getting, you know, you get more points for a first place win,
Yeah,
a
if
second
you get
place,
first
third
you get
place.
10 points, second is 8,
Yeah.
third is
So it's
6.
similar to board
Yeah.
account. It's not a vote,
Yeah,
but
it's the same
but
board.
it's the same precept. Okay? All right? Okay. Plurality with elimination. Now we start knocking some people out. And sometimes that changes things, doesn't it? So we may, a plurality may give you a different outcome than a pairwise would give you. Okay? So this may violate. But what if our election is a pairwise election?
It never violates.
Yeah, because we did a pairwise election, right? So Condorcet is about pairwise should win, right? So the key for Condorcet is pairwise. So if you do a pairwise election, your election has been designed to totally fit this whole Condorcet thing. So we're never going to violate this. How about for the rest of the boxes, we either write never or we write may?
Yeah.
Y'all okay with that? Okay. So,
You forgot an S on violates on the last one.
never violate. And this one too. And this one?
No, may.
May violate.
Oh, shouldn't have S's on mays. I'm with you. I should read everything. Okay, you got Candy Bud. You're definitely sharper than I am at this point in life. Hold on.
Thank you.
All right. So what do you think the majority criterion is saying? What does it seem like it would say?
The majority should win.
Seems like it would say the majority should win, right? Gonna flip back and see if there's any other stipulations to that. Flipping back too far. Majority, if a candidate receives the majority, they ought to win. Seems like that would be the case, right? We compared it with board account, and it didn't turn out that way, correct? But there might be other ones. We just didn't compare it. For each method, we tried it with one thing. We didn't try it with all of them. Okay? So, majority should win. If your election is a majority rule decision, we're not going to violate, right? If you're doing a majority, and you have to have a majority to win, then you didn't violate. There's no way you're going to do that, right? All right? What about plurality? Plurality says the most votes win. No majority is needed. But according to the book,
Still doesn't violate.
it still doesn't violate, okay? Because the most votes won. So I want to look at the wording for the majority. If a candidate receives a majority of the votes, the candidate should win, okay? In plurality,
Person with the majority always wins.
if there was a person with majority, he won, right? Okay,
It doesn't matter if there's always someone with the majority.
okay. You just may not. The book says, gives it a never. I'm just thinking, in plurality, do you ever do plurality and eliminate and end up with a winner who didn't have the most votes in the first place? But he never had a majority.
But
So there may not have been, if there wasn't there wasn't a majority and you went with plurality, then there wasn't a person with a majority. Okay. I'm just running round and round circles in my head. We did try it with the board account, and we found that there could be an exception there, so we may violate. Now, that doesn't mean every board account election will happen, but it's possible. It can happen. All right? What about, wait, I'm saying plurality with elimination when, okay. But even on this one, it says it's never going to violate.
yeah,
Okay? And on the last one, pairwise comparison, again, it says it's going to never violate it. You will not be responsible for memorizing this table in any way. All right? You most likely are going to be given situations similar to our examples to do the election one way, do it the other way, and check, does it violate? All right? And the violate is always going to be if you get two different winners, then that election violated the criterion they were looking for. All right, so monotonicity. What did that mean? Let's look back, because a lot of things have happened, right? Monotonicity, where are you? Right here. This condition, oops, can we see it? Requires that candidate A, if candidate X, okay, this is the one where you could reorder the candidates, okay? Candidate X wins, but if after the election some of the voters decide to change their votes, the only thing they can do with candidate X is move them which direction. The winner could only go higher in ranking, and then everybody else keeps the order they're in, so they can't go shifting around. All right? Monotonicity. So we found that it could be violated with plurality with elimination, right? Okay, so we go over to this one. We found that it could be, maybe, it could be violated in that situation, but it actually never violates any of the others. Okay? So, raising your winner up higher, keeping everybody else's rank the same. Well, you can't raise your majority person higher if they're at the top of the heap. Okay? So, anyway, we only have a maybe here. All right. And then, do you remember what irrelevant alternatives was about?
if candidates drop out of the race, they should not change the.
It shouldn't change the outcome. And we found out that it did happen. And the one, our one comparison was with a pairwise, right? That was our final one. Okay. The only one that it could never mess up with would be majority rule. It would never violate that, but maybe it could violate this, maybe this. We didn't see examples of all of them, but the rest of them are maybes. So if you're a highlighting sort of a person, we have words in all the boxes. I'm just going to highlight it all the places that could violate. Okay, so which elected method, or which election method appears to be the most fair?
Majority rule.
Majority rule doesn't violate any of these, does it? Okay, so it appears majority does not violate any of these four. But is it a perfect system?
No.
Okay, because you don't always have, so what do you do if you don't have a majority?
Yeah.
You got to do something else.
And
Okay.
there's also the candidates could become increasingly like polarized and extremist.
Okay, all right. So one of the drawbacks is, give me a little bit more on your they could become polarized. They could be polarized and extremist if they happen to have enough extremist followers,
Yeah.
right? But so
like-
they don't. But they don't always.
Yeah.
You know, they only. Well, you
Yeah.
know, they might represent 90% of the population because everybody loved them.
Yeah,
They may
they may have just won the
popular.
but that's not what I'm looking for. The spreading rumors about the opponent.
Oh, they could have been doing some mudslinging, and
Yeah.
and they
could've
won
won
because they were
that.
just the loudest, whiniest voice, and
Yeah.
they had a bigger budget for their thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so there are some drawbacks. One, it doesn't always produce a winner. So like in most of our local or most of our political elections, they go with majority rules. But then they have to do another election because they aren't doing a preference ballot where they're ranking them. So that means back to the polls and another 2 months of stuff stuffed in your boxes. That's just annoying. So it doesn't always produce a winner. Okay. And we didn't compare dictator on this because it's just its own little
Yeah.
whatever. So
All of them could violate
yeah.
it.
So kind of the key here is there is no perfect there's no one perfect election method, and so they do have to take these different things into consideration. The one thing I didn't put is there is a I can't even remember the name of it. There was a theorem, and I can't remember who it's by, that says anyway, it proves there's no way that any one election takes care of absolutely everything. So, anyway, all right. So that wraps up this part, which is 10.1, 10.2. So, wait.
Oh, I just seen that the other star. I didn't know.
Yeah, I never put anything for other stuff. I never could find a good way to word it. So, anyway, that wraps up 10.1, 10.2. When we come back from spring break, we will be working on the CMHW and also that vocab to get it ready to matching, and it will become a test, but it will be a daily grade. And then when I give you your 10.3, 10.3 is printed by itself because 10.4 has not even been touched yet. 10.3 gets kind of involved. We may leave it separate and not staple it to this. It's going to start getting thick before long. I have no idea how thick 10.4 is going to be. So, anyway. Okay, so you've got a little bit of time. So, you could go get yourself some clean paper and get a textbook and start in on your 10.2 assignment right now. So I'm going to stop the video.